Hello, Commander29 here, another review for Rush Hour the TV series, episode 12, called The Dark Knight. While the title is a reference to Batman, sadly there are no references to Batman in the episode. The episode is about Lee and Carter investigating a few high-profile assassinations and trying to find out who's behind it. It's the basic plot I can get into without, digging into spoilers. So let's talk about the plot for a minute. The plot, this episode is very, very plot-driven. In fact, it's very much like a couple other episodes, but this one is probably one of them. Despite the fact that the plot is entirely self-contained, and this has no hints of the triads or anything, which kind of has been a little bit surprising considering we've gotten multiple episodes in a row that have had nothing to do with the triads. In fact, barely getting a mention of Lee's sister or the triads. But this episode is very much like some of the other episodes, I think maybe even episode 5, where this is very, very plot heavy. And the plot is actually pretty good. I found myself a little surprised at it. I actually was kind of disappointed at first. I was thinking it's just going to be another episode 6. And then it wasn't. It actually turned out to be pretty good. Now, the plot of it actually, very much like how the episode Knock Knock House Creeping focused on the captain in a case that she did years ago. This episode focuses on Carter and something that happened to him earlier in his career, but he's trying to figure out what exactly is going on. So, I won't spoil it, but that's basically what it is. I found this to be a very, interesting episode and a very, in fact, kind of emotional episode. It definitely played on the emotions for Carter and I think really kind of, did give a little bit more, it did round Carter out a little bit more. It did, develop him a little bit more than as, a douche. Because, while I have given positive response, I have said good things about the fact that Carter's been acting more and more douchey, being more in line with his movie counterpart. I did like the fact that I did like that element of, this episode. But overall, yeah, the plot is good. And I found that to be pretty, honestly, fairly consistent among the episodes of the show, is that the plots have actually been pretty decent. I haven't really had much to complain about in terms of plot. The only episode that I think really before that I actually complained about the plot in is the episode when they went back to be high school teachers, which was just kind of a mediocre episode anyway. But yeah, the plot is actually pretty good. As far as humor goes, this episode is lighter on humor than it is in other episodes. Like I said, it's very plot heavy, and it's honestly plot pretty much dominates the episode. While there are jokes in this, a running gag of Lee saying that he's honored to be places and meet people, and a few jokes at Carter's expense, a few jokes with douchebag McMustache. There aren't really too many jokes in this, and none that I really thought were, and only a few that I really thought were actually funny. But it's not that the jokes are bad, it's just, it doesn't have as many jokes. There are just enough jokes in this to really kind of balance out the more serious nature of the plot, which is very much, good, considering the fact that I don't want to watch an episode of Rush Hour and have an entirely serious episode. It's not what it's about, especially when you advertise that as an action comedy. Want some comedy in it. And we do get that. We do get a little bit of Gerald. But, overall, the humor is less used in this episode than it is in other episodes. Now, as far as the action is probably one of the more disappointing parts of this episode. We got some good stuff and we got some bad stuff. Some slow motion. But Lee ends up having to go up against this, guy who's 6.5 feet tall. He's described by Carter as the baby of The Rock and Shaquille O'Neal. And the first time Lee fights him, he's destroyed, complete curb stomp. Lee loses, badly. And then in the end of the episode, and it's like, but this guy ultimately is not beaten in any satisfying way. Neither is this other hench person that, because the main bad guy of this episode does have a couple of them, and ultimately the end fights were just disappointing, and it's really disappointing, especially considering the opera house, or the music house, fight scene from last episode where Lee ends up using a bunch of instruments in creative ways to fight off all the thugs. And this was just kind of it almost felt like they were like, we need to put a fight scene in this, so we need to have a fight scene in it, so let's just put a fight scene in it, It didn't really feel like they cared a whole lot. It didn't feel like there was a lot of heart in the fight. It was a little repetitious from the previous fights, and then Lee wins. It's like Lee's instant win button. It's like, come on, guys. At least make him struggle a little bit in the final fight. But other than that, the action, it was nice to see Lee lose. When I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, I want to see Lee come back and beat his butt. And when he beat him, I'm like, it was just disappointing. And it was over way too quickly. I mean, yes, the focus was very much on the main bad guy and Carter going after him, but when there have been so many other good fight scenes in the show, you would think, come on, you can do better than this. I've seen you do better. So overall, the action's kind of mixed. It was a little bit of good and, just kind of fizzles out. Now, as far as the characters go, like I said before, this episode does focus on Carter. And we actually do see Carter, a more sensitive side to Carter. And I'm not saying that there's no basis for this in the movies, because especially in Rush Hour 1, when Carter calls Johnson and asks her for help in rescuing Soo-young, he basically says, you know what, I've been a douchebag, I've been a prick, I've been completely self-absorbed, this isn't about me, it's about the little girl, I need help with this. And we do see that Carter is capable of caring, and he just doesn't really show it as much. So I do like the fact that among the midst of showing Carter being a douche, we do get this episode that really kind of pulls out a softer side to him and really shows that, he really does like to help people. That's why he's a cop, and it's why he's not a thug, and it's why he's not a criminal like Gerald. He does want to help people. That's why he became a detective. He wants to do good. He's just has some trouble with obeying the law sometimes. But yeah, I did really enjoy that. Lee was basically just Lee in this episode. He didn't really do anything spectacular. Dee Dee was just kind of there. She banters with some people. She banters with Lee. She throws some shade at Carter. I did like this one moment where she starts... She's getting mad at Carter, and she just starts rambling on in Spanish, and from what I can tell, she's basically talking about stabbing Carter with her car keys, but it's entirely in Spanish, and then she just kind of walks off, and Carter's like, Lee, does Dee ever scare you? So I thought it was funny because, since she's Hispanic, I just thought it was interesting, the fact that we actually did get a little bit of that in her character in this episode. The one standout in this episode has to be the main vat guy. And I won't go into details on him, simply because I don't want to spoil the episode, but he's very much a mastermind kind of character. I actually was wondering, as I was watching this episode for the first time, I was wondering, is this guy, this has potential to be like an ongoing villain. And then I thought, you know what? Considering the fact that, well, we know, even if we're probably not going to get any more seasons, but considering the fact that the focus of this has always been on triads, and the fact that we've maybe gotten 3-4 episodes really about, that actually show stuff with the triads out of 13 or 12 at this point. About a third of the season has been dedicated to the overall, overarching season plot. So I really wouldn't want them to get distracted with trying to shove in another big, mastermind villain, especially considering, ultimately his motivations. But they didn't go that route, and I'm actually kind of glad. I would rather for them wait to do that, and if they were going to introduce another villain, I would like them to do it in the style of having a character like Juntao, or the billionaire guy from Rush Hour 2. I still can't remember his name. Or Renard in Rush Hour 3, you know. Like I said in my Rush Hour 3 review, evil white guy, evil Asian guy. But right now, especially starting off, I would like them to focus on the triads, which, thankfully, it looks like the season finale is going to be entirely about the triads. Finally. So yeah, really that's it. This episode is pretty good. It's just, don't expect a whole lot of jokes in this episode. I enjoyed it, and even though the jokes kind of, you know, weren't as prevalent as other episodes, and they were really here in this episode strictly to balance out the seriousness of the plot. The action was kind of a mixed bag, and overall I just kind of felt meh about it, but the story was good and I did enjoy it, and even I went back and rewatched the episode after, you know, having seen all the reveals in the episode, and I actually did enjoy it more knowing the full context of what was going on. So yeah, it's a pretty good episode. Not my favorite. I wouldn't list this as my top 5 favorite episodes, but it's still pretty good. As a note, considering that this is the penultimate episode of the season and probably the second to last episode we're probably ever going to get, unless another, you know, network picks this up, which it probably won't. I want to talk a little bit about the previews for the season finale, and which, as of recording, it's going to be later today. Sorry for being late on this. I've been having a lot of issues with getting around to recording, but the season finale looks like it's going to be dealing with the triads, and we're going to be seeing the dragon head involved. I think his name is played by James Hong. He does more comedic stuff. I think he's the voice of Poe's dad in Kung Fu Panda, but you know, we're going to see this. I honestly guarantee you we're going to see the return of Lee's sister. Freaking finally, bring Kim back. I like her character so much, but we hardly ever see her. She's only been mentioned once in the past several episodes. And I want to see more of her. And I mean, I'm really hoping that we, you know, I honestly want a fight between Lee and Kim, really. A good fight without slow motion. And I really want Lee and Kim to finally like reconcile, and for Kim to ultimately end up helping him. I really want that to happen, and I want to have Kim become a regular part of the cast. But man, I'm talking about this like we're gonna get a second season. But anyway, I really hope that the season finale is going to be good, and considering the fact that the track record of the show, the worst episode in the series was just okay. So I consider that a massive success, and so far I've really enjoyed the season, and I really hope the season finale caps this off in a decent way. So yes, thank you for watching, and please watch the season finale for Rush Hour. Thank you.